Happy Thursday. It is Therapy Thursday. I'm Dr. Triffy. Welcome to Transforming Trauma podcast with Dr. Triffy. Come on in. Come on in. As you come in, share the live. Come on into the room. How are you today? Every Thursday at about this time, I show up to teach skills using psychology on how to think better so you can feel better and do better. I'm a licensed psychologist in Atlanta, Georgia, but I am originally from the lovely nature island of the Caribbean, Dominica, not to be confused with the Dominican Republic. We love them, but they're a completely different country. So tonight I'm diving in to painful relationships. And our topic tonight is oxytocin bonding and painful relationships. The question is, how does this love hormone potentially make younger women and older men foolish? Foolish. Okay, so let's start. What is a hormone? Do you know? If you know the answer, type it in the chat. We're doing a little conversation tonight. Yeah? What's a hormone? And what is oxytocin? Why is it important? How can it help you? Can you increase your oxytocin levels? Do you know how to do that? Why might that be good? And what might decrease oxytocin levels? And how does that feel in the body? And how does that impact relationships? And why I think younger women in particular and older men, if they're not watching the way they relate, they might be at risk for a lot of pain. Okay, so first, what is oxytocin? Oxytocin is a hormone that affects many aspects of reproduction and bonding and or behavior. It is formed or created, generated in the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is the part of your brain that controls like your blood pressure. It controls your heart rate and your body temperature, digestion. And this little hormone, sometimes when I say it, it sounds like Oxycontin, which is a pain medication. We're not talking about Oxycontin, we're talking about oxytocin. That little hormone is very impactful in attachment, in getting us connected, plugged in, attracted to, bonded, staying together with another human being. All right. So what's a hormone? Hormones, they carry information in the body. A hormone is a chemical that coordinates different functions in your body, essentially by carrying messages throughout the body and telling your muscles what to do, telling your tissues what to do. They signal your body when to start, when to stop certain activities. So here comes the little hormone oxytocin. Now, for people from Dominica and St. Lucia who might be listening, or people from Creole speaking islands, there's a word we use in our vernacular, in the Creole vernacular, called guopuel. And guopuel is a form of suffering. It's a form of suffering. It's a form of depression that is related to relationships. So when a relationship ends, and say you did not want the relationship to end, it was not a mutually agreed upon separation, the one who's left behind might suffer a lot. Suffer a lot. We call that guopuel. You can think of it as a broken heart. I want to show you how guopuel might be connected to oxytocin. All right. So oxytocin is associated with trust. Oxytocin is also associated with relationships and sexual arousal. But the two primary functions of oxytocin are, number one, to stimulate contractions in the uterus when a woman is having a baby. When a woman is giving birth, oxytocin gushes to stimulate the contractions in the uterine walls. And number two, to also stimulate lactation and to help in breastfeeding is very important, particularly in women's bodies. But there are other relational functions of that hormone, and we can get mm, caught. We can get caught if we're not doing our relationships well. So, oxytocin is also impactful with, like I was saying earlier, sexual arousal, trust, building trust in recognition, even, and recognizing emotions and our ability to empathize with other people. It is impactful in romantic attachment and also for parent infant attachment and bonding. So, what can trigger oxytocin release if a mother is breastfeeding? Hmm? That can trigger oxytocin release. Like I said, also during the labor process, oxytocin is released to help with labor and delivery. But also, if you're cuddling, if you're hugging, if you're touching, if you're dancing together, oxytocin can also be released through exercise. They have recently been able to administer oxytocin through nasal sprays as well. So, outside of the body, it can be produced and administered into the body. Okay, so how can oxytocin potentially make a young woman foolish and an older man foolish? The process is called oxytocin bonding. So, ladies, especially younger ladies before menopause, anytime, anytime, you see, I mentioned cuddling, touching, inhaling for some of us, sometimes even listening to a person's voice, but in particular, sexual intercourse is a huge trigger for oxytocin release, especially in a younger woman, to facilitate attachment and bonding. So think of this as an evolutionary mechanism. Think of it, we have the uh, duty, or our bodies want us to procreate. Let me say it like this: our bodies want us to procreate, right? And it does many things to attach us to people so that we can procreate. Another thing that nature does is nature does not like the same kind of thing. So, um, if you graft a tree, it might be very sturdy. Yeah, if you produce too much of the same thing, you can create illnesses. If you have babies with somebody who's too close to your bloodline, you might have deformities, okay, and many physical problems. You all know that. So nature likes variety. Nature likes us to be attracted to people who are close enough to us so that we can see the similarity, but also very different from us, to limit or to cut down on the number of uh, babies who might not survive, because life and evolution is about continuing towards life and more life and life and more life, yeah, producing more babies. So what happens to a younger woman, huh? You meet a young man, your body likes the young man. They might not even be technically good for you on paper, but your body might really want to connect from an evolutionary standpoint. Hmm? And what happens as you have physical intercourse? It's not just lying down and touching. That will stimulate oxytocin release, yes, but when we talk about oxytocin bonding, let me tell you, if you want to become bonded to a person, when I think about it in a spiritual way as opposed to biology, I say you marry that person. Okay? You almost marry that person. And you've seen many younger women get very attached to people, again, who are not necessarily good for them. From the moment you have that physical connection in that way, you expose yourself to becoming chemically bonded. When I say chemically bonded, we're talking about a hormone which acts in your brain like a drug, because it does something to many of us pre-menopause, especially because, again, that's in the stage of life that your body wants you to procreate. It does something to attach you, body, mind, soul, to somebody you have physical intercourse with, right? Sexual intercourse with. Okay. Uh, what does that mean for a young woman who is connecting with a young man who does not want to be connected? Here's the thing: a young man biologically is producing testosterone out the wazoo. And many young men at that age are not necessarily ready to attach long term. So, where does that leave the young female body that has chemically bonded to a male body that does not respond in the same way? Yeah, you see the conundrum for many babies who get left. Do you see how that happens? And do you see also how many younger women stay very plugged in and connected to people they have connected with in that way, although the person moves on, because it's easier biologically for him. The same attachment process doesn't happen with a male body at that age. So that's, I'll explain now why older men become vulnerable post 40, 45. Okay? So let me share a study with you. So, oxytocin is a beautiful thing, of course. Like we said, it's meant to attach the mother to the baby, it's meant to attach us to each other. Oxytocin also helps to guard our heart. Yes, yes, yes. Because it can lower our blood pressure. It can reduce inflammation and diffuse free radicals in the body. Free radicals will help, they perpetuate illness in the body. Another thing that oxytocin does is it helps the heart to replace dead tissue, dead muscle cells. So very potent, very beautiful and necessary hormone. But again, as a younger woman, if you are not navigating your romantic relationship with that information in mind, you could get physically bonded. And some people describe it as an addiction almost to a male body that you have had sex with. So, again, although the person might not feel the same in their body, and it's easier for them to detach, walk away, or not commit, not provide the safety that that younger woman and the child that's coming might need. You are in that scenario, you're in that potentially desperate situation. I'll talk about what you can do when you're younger, as a younger woman, to mitigate against your brain, because the more I read, the more I learn, is the more I appreciate the power of the brain. And many of us think, well, my mind, my thoughts are stronger than my biology. It's a tough battle. It's a tough battle because sometimes, even though you know what is a better way to go, your body, your body's needs are so strong, you might give in. Hmm? You might give in without necessarily thinking through the best scenarios for yourself. Amma, good night. And Christine, good night. And Joyce, good night. Come on in, type your questions. If you have questions, if something I say about this, you think you need some clarification on it, type it in the chat for me. Okay? Okay, now let's talk about older men. So, younger men produce, uh, like the testosterone is otherwise right when it comes to production. A young man is strong, vibrant, he's in his element. As men start to hit 40, as men start to hit 40, many men start experiencing lower testosterone. Hmm? Some people call that andropause or the male menopause, and it can really do a number on a man's health. Um, some people say it mimics menopause in women. Some of the symptoms for men at that age might include a loss of interest in sex, irritability, mood swings. Some men even get hot flashes, yeah, fatigue. And when that testosterone level potentially drops, men, as you're getting older, testosterone really is what men rely on to hit and quit. So tonight I'm doing a more conversational transforming trauma because I want us to understand it well. Testosterone is what young men rely on to hit and quit, to keep moving around, to keep, you know. But as that starts to, as the impact of testosterone on a male's body starts to drop, the impact of a hormone like oxytocin starts to become more potent. It starts to become more potent. Hmm? As people become older too, they also begin to be more uh, empathetic, men and women, but women have a different process. I'm focusing on the men. Men become more charitable. They're helping. If you're in need, they have more access to material wealth, but also they become a little more generous and softer. That's when people start forming their foundations and their charities, and they want to help. They want to help people do better. What position does that now put an older man whose body is more impacted by oxytocin and less by testosterone as it used to? What happens if a man like that is maybe married and he's with his wife who is his age, but he meets a younger woman who, um, say, he gives in to the physical temptation? Hmm? Say he gives in to the physical temptation. This man now becomes vulnerable to becoming very bonded to that young person. What do you see happen to many men at about that age? We say it's a midlife crisis. Many of them will pack up and leave with that younger person who they've become so bonded to and who their heart becomes very open to with the empathy and the more their ability, their body's ability to access the oxytocin now. Hmm? That increases their empathy and wants to help and wants to help. So she's needy. She wants this man, if he is not uh, grounded enough to maintain his commitment, might be easy prey to the chemical bonding that happens where when he was a younger man, he could, like I say, hit and quit. It does not work that way anymore as a man gets older in his biology, in his body. And so that is what I mean when I say that oxytocin, this love hormone that is meant for attachment and bonding, could leave many young women looking foolish and many older men looking foolish. Okay? Because many men throughout history have surrendered their entire families, their wives of their youth, their grandkids, access to their grandchildren. Because if you leave your wife, do you think your kids are not going to be very unhappy? Very unhappy. Do you think potentially you might lose access to your grandkids and your great grandkids? Yes. To friends, to property, to resources? Yes. And so uh, I think older men, when I say older, again, men's bodies start doing that shift around their 40s, okay? And your testosterone levels start to drop. Your body becomes more impacted by oxytocin. So the behaviors you might have learned as a 19-year-old man, you know, with multiple partners and all of that, you might continue the behavior, but your circumstances in your body have changed. And so that makes you more vulnerable. That makes you more vulnerable. From an evolutionary standpoint, what I think about that is that perhaps nature wants men as they get older to have set themselves up in such a way that they have a network and they have a loving, caring, feminine, and children in their lives, because as men get older, they need a lot of cherishing. As men get older, they need a lot more cherishing, let me say that, than they did when they were in their 20s, in their 30s, because you have different hormones impacting your body. So even if, let's get to the pure, um, the biology of physical interactions, right? So a man, as he gets older, even though his testosterone drops and he loses, he doesn't have as much interest in sex, he might go to his doctor and say, Doc, this is what's up. Um, I need Cialis. Hmm? I need Viagra. Okay, so mechanically, that will be fine. Mechanically, that will be fine. But if you still have a hormone like oxytocin impacting your body, you could get chemically bonded to the wrong one. To the wrong one. Hmm? And like I said, if she's premenopausal, her body's wanna is going to want to bond to yours. So if you, again, as a man, if you're not in a situation where you can create something meaningful with that person, you want to be very cautious. You want to be very cautious because you might get bonded to somebody who is not going to hear you say, no, I'm going back home. And you yourself might not want to go back home because your body will be responding now in a different way to something you used to be able to do and get away with and come back home when you were in your 20s, your 30s, even early 40s, but especially around like mid 40s, when that andropause starts to hit, relationally, you can put yourself in a lot of, in a pickle, in a pickle. So I think men have to become very thoughtful as they get older with information like that. Okay? So here's another thing to consider. Another potential dark side of oxytocin, again, because it is an attachment hormone and it gets activated when we hug, when we cuddle, when we are with people who like us and we like them too. Imagine you're in a group like a church. You see each other Sunday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, all week, or in a political party. That can become very attaching, very bonding. And you see how painful it is for many people to break off from organizations like that, to the point where sometimes maybe you might say people have a cult kind of mentality. Sometimes it's the attachment and the bonding that is brain stimulated, brain induced, that people are responding to. And even if it means going down with a sinking ship, many people will choose to do that because the brain is very powerful. The brain is very powerful. If you want to think about how powerful the brain is, consider this. If you wake up, say at 3 o'clock in the morning, 3 a.m., and somehow, if you're in the US, right, say you forgot to uh, turn on your heat last night and the temperature drops really low and it's just freezing and you want to go use the bathroom. How many people might actually stay in there for a whole hour, working up the nerve to get up to go to the bathroom? It's brain, it's brain chemistry. I mean, it's too cold. Yeah. Or you can flip it to, if you're having trouble waking up and your alarm, your body's just not responding to your alarm. If you say, tell one of your kids, hey, when you wake up at 4 a.m., turn on the heat, turn on the heat so high, say like 80 degrees. Trust me, I don't care how much you want to sleep. If it becomes too hot, you're going to get up. So that's what I mean when I say you might want to do a certain thing, but if your brain is responding how it's responding, trust me, 9 times out of 10, you're going to respond to the brain chemicals, okay, and the hormones in your body. Same thing like, say, a hunger hormone. Many people want to lose weight, but sometimes that hunger hormone, what's it called? Ghrelin or whatever it is. The nurses, Amma, you can confirm with me. Um, a hormone like ghrelin will impact your body to such an extent that your mind wants you to lose the weight because you're diabetic or you have hypertension. But if that ghrelin is activated and doing its thing, trust me, you're going to be munching all day long. And so the weight is not going to come off, except if you have some sort of medical intervention that can, bypass that or do something else with that. Okay? So, younger women. When I say younger women, as long as you're in the baby making age, prior to menopause, if you have sex with a man, your body is going to bond chemically to that man more likely than not. And to separate from that person is going to feel sometimes like you're dying. It's going to feel like you're coming off a drug. Some people call it oxytocin withdrawal and suggest that you have to go on, you have to detox from a person after you break up. So that's the guop oil. That's the guop oil kind of feeling. It is very painful because nature wants you to stay together. Nature wants that woman's body to stay connected to that man's body. If you went there, if you did it, yeah, especially because if we've created new life, the new young needs to become adult enough to survive. The little one needs to become strong enough to survive and needs the resources from both. So nature does a heck of a job on the woman's body, keeping her biologically connected to this male, who his body is doing something different with the testosterone, and he's saying like one here, one there, one there, one there, one there, one there, one there. So it's almost as if we're working at cross purposes, maybe sometimes. And as a younger woman, what you can do with that is to try to negotiate your relationship up front to decrease on the likelihood of you becoming chemically attached, chemically hooked to a young male's body. Okay? So you let the person know up front, yes, yeah, I'm very attracted to you. Yes, I want to do what you're telling me, let's do. But I need to know your intentions. What is your plan for this thing? Because if I physically, right, if I become sexual with you, I put myself at risk of becoming chemically attached, chemically tied, chemically bonded. And whether or not I want to break it off, whether or not you're married, if I go there with you physically, my body won't want me to let go of you. So if you're really interested in me, let me know what your plans are so that I can make a better decision about whether or not I become physically connected to you. Because this is what I would be saying yes to. I would be saying yes to becoming chemically bonded to you. And so I'm also inviting younger men to understand that and to consider that too when you approach a woman your age, a woman in baby making stage of her life. If you know you're not serious or you're not even exploring her as an option to create a secure uh, setup, I think conscience wise, I think it's time in our evolution as human beings. I think it's time in our evolution as human beings to consider, you know what? Nah, I'm going to this woman she's on a different track. And I know for sure that I'm not ready to provide the structure and the safety and the security that any young that comes from her will need to increase the likelihood of it growing into an adult, into a well adjusted adult. Because that's what nature has us having sex for, isn't it? Nature has us having sex to create more life. Yeah, and these hormones, they do these things to us. So yes, Amma, men are, yeah, polygamous by nature, but through evolution, men have understood that, and men have to understand that you've got to manage the polygamous nature because you increase the likelihood of a young that you produce. And that young that you produce is your genetics. You're saying yes to perpetuating into the future. So you increase the likelihood of your legacy if you also create a structure of safety and security for that young. Because if you don't do that, what's going to happen? This woman, if you hit and quit because your body wants you to quit, if you hit and quit, then you are setting up your genetics, your seed, for stress, trauma, less resources, less access to wealth, less access to a good education, less access to that ability to survive well and to keep procreating and to keep uh, launching your DNA into perpetuity. So, my recommendation for women is to know that men are polygamous by nature. They are. A man's nature is to see many and to give his DNA the most, as many opportunities as possible to launch into the future biologically. But as we've evolved, many men have seen how, hey, yeah, my biology is kind of wired that way, but it makes more sense for me to build and house these 12 with this one woman because we can aggregate our resources. It is less stressful for me because I don't have to manage 10 different personalities. We all know, if we're wise, that it is hard to manage one relationship, much less to manage 10. Hmm? If the aim is to procreate and have the DNA continue, have my genetics continue, I have to figure out a different way to do that. Eh? Different way to do that. The 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 reason I say sometimes it feels as if nature has us working against each other, but I trust in the beauty of nature, and it does what it does, is because women feel so much, because women feel so much pain when they, they don't have enough attention, they don't have enough resources, they don't feel secure enough. Then you have women have struggled, I'm sure, to create systems, where the man is going to provide a secure setting for me versus I have to share my resources, my kids have to share your attention, affection, the money with 10 others. No, let's build together. And Abu might say, I don't know how well that's working, right, Amma? Because there are many younger men, right, who end up creating other families, like entire other families, by breaking the rules that society has set up to help us navigate growing babies in the optimal way, in an optimal way. So I think we have to keep negotiating these things. Hi, Havis. I think we have to keep negotiating these things. And when it comes to the polygamous part, women are also not as faithful as we think. Women are polygamous too, but less so than men. But um, women are wondering too. There's a certain. I mean, nothing is all or nothing. So there are enough women who are also wondering, and many women will wonder for that security and attention and affection too. Yeah, women will wander. But because they love the security, they might, in Dominica parlance, give the child to the safe man. Because that's what the woman's her task is, to ensure that little thing becomes, oh, again, a well-rounded, safe baby becomes an adult. How do I take this baby, this seed, to a full-grown adult so that we can keep perpetuating the race, human race? So, I, Ama, there is a place for multiple spouses. I mean, if that works for some people. I mean, I'm not a priest, I'm not a pastor. I'm about adults making choices as long as it's legal, ethical, and moral. Yeah, and in many cultures it is moral, ethical, and legal to have many wives. That's not my business to say that's wrong or right. That's their business if that's their choice. But I don't think it's, I think that because we have, as human beings, also evolved in a way to where many men can hold the idea of aggregating their resources, including their sperm resources, with one woman, create and build upwards instead of wide. Yeah. So when I think of polygamy, I think of it as it's wide, but a two-person, you go up. You can build however you want to build. And religion helps us do that. Religious organizations help us do either one, because some religious organization, like the Muslim faith, is the faith where it's a lot more common to have multiple, you know, partners in an established sort of way. You have multiple wives. But there are also cultures where there are multiple husbands. Yeah. So it's not just men that are polygamous. Women are too, although to a lesser degree, but it's still there. So let me take some of your questions and your comments. Amma, you're on fire tonight. Amma says, yeah, Amma, you mentioned ghrelin and leptin. Leptin is another one too. We're talking about how the brain, you can have your thoughts and your way you want to live your life, but if your brain is doing something else and you have these hormones in your body driving your body, you better check on your hormones, because sometimes they're driving you to do things. Meanwhile, you're thinking, I have no willpower, or I'm bad, I'm wicked, I'm this or I'm that. Um, yes, I do believe that men are polygamous by nature, um, but that they have learned through evolution and with the support of community systems like churches that teach about, that have it in rules and books that a man is married to one wife. And again, that's just certain spiritual teachings, because Christians say that, but Muslims also, it's okay for a man to have several wives. And the Mormons, there's some Mormons that have more than one wife. But there are also cultures where women have several husbands, where the idea is that it's okay it's not that kind of possessive situation. It's almost like a community baby. But I mean, to each his own, to each his own. Abu talks a lot about, um, I think Abu makes a strong case every chance he gets for men having multiple wives. What are your thoughts on that, y'all? Um, Again, that's people's business. People can do whatever they want, but I, I am not prejudiced. So I also know that there are cultures where women have multiple partners, like long-standing cultures. So it's not as if it's a new phenomenon. Amma says, but then the cultures where this becomes practiced are more realistic. Um, I don't know that it's more realistic. It works for them. I don't know that it's more realistic, because many people are able to stay faithful in their unions. Many people are able to stay married. Amma says that's the Muslim in her talking. Have we evolved, or did the rules and regulations determine that? I think it's both. I think it's both. I think it's both. I definitely think the rules and regulations were created to support that. But most people do things because there's value in it, like there's work. there's benefits from it. So um Christian cultures that set it up that way, clearly it's worked for many people because people still doing it. Hi Heavies, good night. Good night. Say what rules? Heavies, what you mean what rules, eh? Amma says, I believe we have to be realistic that it's not working because the men are still wondering. We need to negotiate this for a fact and be realistic. I think that is situational because I think there are women who want to be the ones. I think there are women, again, who are also polygamous. That's everybody's on the spectrum, right? There are also women who are polygamous. So I think this is a negotiation between the couple. I think this is a negotiation between the couple. I think, if something is too painful for your partner, you don't need to be with that partner because you're incompatible. So if you can find a woman or women who are compatible with you on that aspect, that's your business if it's legal. Hmm? Yeah. Heavis thinks polygamy is not the answer, but many do it. Pastor Wallis. Heavy says men are greedy, they're just greedy. Um, I again on like Dr. Triffy doesn't say greedy or not greedy, like I hold off on the judgment. I will say that men are everybody's impacted by the brain. And sometimes it's hormonal things because it would be the same way when a man hits his 40s where now his body becomes more impacted by estrogen and more impacted by oxytocin. He starts acting in a different way. He becomes a softer person, becomes a softer human being who's more able to recognize his emotions and connect to his feelings. That's his brain doing that stuff. Yeah. Amma says, I believe if we're allowed this, they could be held more accountable for all these children out there. There's something to that, Amma. Because what ends up happening is men do live, many men do still live a polygamous lifestyle. And the young woman is left with the pain of sometimes having to now become both parents to the young, to bring that young to adulthood. And that is not good for the young. It's not good for the culture. It's not good for the society. It's not good. So at the very least, younger women have to do a more thorough job of investigating the intentions of the young man who comes to her, appreciating that she's working also with his biology. And that younger man, I heard a gentleman say his thinking was that men should actually get coupled younger. So get married younger as opposed to waiting and doing this kind of polygamous lifestyle prior to marrying and then having learned to relate in that way to bring that to a marriage relationship. It's almost like no, you still the same oat sower. What do y'all think about that? What do you think about that? For older men, fellas, when your body hits 40s, your testosterone levels are going to start dropping. You're going to hit a period of your life called andropause, that some people call the male menopause. And your body is going to become more impacted by a hormone like oxytocin, which makes it harder for you to act like you used to act like a young man. Okay? You will see the pretty girl and you will go and you think you can still sow your oats like you used to, but your body is going to bond to hers now when you become older. So next thing, even if in your mind you didn't want to stay, your heart's going to be more open. You're going to want to stay. If she's before menopause, she's also going to want you to stay. That's why plenty young women that tell those old man, I going to leave you if you see you don't leave your wife. And many men get their hearts broken that way, one way or the other. You get your heart broken that way, one way or the other, because if you leave your wife and your family, where you by now you have grown kids, mm, you leave them, you really interfere with the relationship you were building with your kids and with your wife. You've invested a lot of time and money and resources together, building homes and businesses and lives. You know, they say sometimes it's cheaper to keep her. Hmm? But the brain chemistry with the oxytocin might make you feel like you're dying, and you might go with that young person that you thought you could just pass by and do a drive by. Unfortunately, your body is not working that way anymore. And even if you are using an aid for the physical side of things like Viagra or Cialis, oxytocin is still working. So your attachment and your bonding capacity is no bigger. Can you believe it? You've weaponized yourself against yourself. Yeah. So oxytocin, that love hormone, I think it makes young women foolish because a young woman, I've met many kids, especially daughters of younger mothers who, they're older now, so now they can talk about it in therapy, who will say, my mother stayed while my stepdad hurt me in a sexual way. She didn't believe me. She actually blamed me. She hurt me and she chose a man over me. Her brain did, her biology did, because it might have felt so painful for her to separate that she came up with every excuse in the book. Yeah. Good evening, Parkinson, my cousin. How are you? Um, Heavy says women will never be polygamous like men want you to be. Women are too emotional. Younger women are too emotional. Younger women before menopause are too emotional. Um, and again, because of that oxytocin bonding that happens when you do try that polyamorous, polygamous lifestyle, you're getting attached, you're getting hooked. So it's hard. That brain chemical bonds you with one person. So it's hard for you to even see somebody else. But again, everybody's brain chemistry is different. So there's a certain percentage that are completely okay with a polygamous lifestyle, or if their brain is hurt. Okay, like if a woman's brain is hurt through something like sexual trauma early on in life, yeah, she might be able to do that polygamous lifestyle. That's what I was talking about one day. I'm going to say it in Creole when I said this business about nasty business chante bagay kon sa, and you know porn is filled, the porn industry is filled with women who were hurt, and so that's the manifestation of it. Amma says, I think, like you said, it's situational. I come from a polygamous family with 18 children, and not one of us has a polygamous relationship. Yes. Yeah. It's situational, and you can choose. And even if you're, I mean, think about it. Even if your body is working a certain way, so if you relate that to hunger, even if you're hungry, many people will still lose weight, even if the ghrelin and the leptin is working a number on them by using other environmental support systems. Yeah. You might go to Weight Watchers, you might exercise more. Yeah. You might eat smaller portions. So it's not as if you cannot navigate and mitigate the influence of the brain chemicals. You can. That's why polygamy is not the only answer. That's why, yes, you can be married to one wife and make that work. But you have to understand you're going to need more supports. So uh maybe you go out to the club less party time because yo bro you have to avoid occasions for sin. Right? You might have to have friends who are couples versus single friends. That's an environmental support a young husband can set up for himself. You might have to become very involved in your community, very involved in your church. Those are environmental supports to help you navigate your uh, bent for polygamy. Parkinson says, your Bible say that Solomon had more than one. I agree with you on that. Solomon had more than one, but you want to know what Solomon also had? Beaucoup d'argent, a lot of resources, a lot of money to be able to support the many that he did have. So a broke man cannot be looking at polygamy as an option because it's about resources. How are you going to support the five if you cannot even support yourself or one? So there's also the resources piece. And you cannot be saying, well, I'm going to use those 10 women. Yeah, I'm going to set up a compound and those 10 women have to work. It's not, that's out of, that's a cop out right there. That's a cop out in my view. Heavy says, maybe I should have been born in biblical times. I only would want 3 to 6. Definitely not like Solomon with his wives and concubines. That's funny, Havis. That is funny. Yeah. Good evening. How are you? Heavy says, Doc, this is a great topic, but it needs to be more private in a Zoom or a podcast, not Facebook, because people are worried about their responses on social media. That is true. I hope they think about it, though. I hope that they um, listen to it and are thoughtful about it and make their determinations. Feel free if you have a question to ask me a question, behind in the shortcut in Facebook Messenger, right? Ask me a question. Um, Kristen says, according to most men, they prefer to experience life before getting married. I know many men say that, but I think a lot of men learn a lot of bad habits, bad relational habits when they do that kind of thing, because if you haven't learned to attach, sometimes when you do come to the state where you have to attach, then it can be very troubling for you. Heavy said, look at what happened to Solomon. You see how Solomon end up? Yeah, so to review, oxytocin, you can call it the love hormone. It's the bonding and attachment hormone in the body. And the body is going to produce a lot of it when a woman is in labor, so the woman's uterine walls can contract, and also to stimulate lactation. Yeah, it's about life, isn't it? Oxytocin is about life. And oxytocin also is very important when a woman and a man have sexual intercourse. The woman's brain, though, is going to become chemically bonded to the man, to that male person's smell, their sound of their voice, everything. And as a result, you can do a lot of things maybe that you never thought you would do for a person, even if you might not be getting it reciprocated. And you're at risk of it not getting reciprocated if you do not make an agreement first. As in, you do the best you can, because again, a person could change their mind on you. But at least you would be doing your due diligence, where before you become physically connected to a man, pre-menopause, you say, yes, I want that too, but For me to feel safer, I need to know that you're going to be committed to me long term, and that your intention, your plan is for you, for us to build something together. Because anytime we connect, we are putting ourselves in the line of creating new life. So, in the event that new life comes, isn't it better, y'all, to have an agreement up front before you buy a house? Do you want to buy a house? Something as powerful as having new life, we have to do better with that. You buy a house, you buy a car, you look at the contract first. Even your phone, you go to AT&T and you got a whole long contract. So it is important, I think, given these factors that you cannot get away from, now that you maybe understand it better, now that you understand why the man, all he did was, um, smell very nice. Because some of us will get connected again just on the smell. But definitely, you are going to cement that bonding with physical intimacy. So you have to, if you know this, you have to think ahead. You have to think ahead versus after. And men coming in, young men have to know this too. I understand that, you want what you want, but you have to still also consider another human being on a human being to human being level. Older men put themselves at risk if they sleep with a young lady, or any lady for that matter, because their bodies are now, they're now in the position. It's like life reverses the roles. When I think about it, I say to myself, okay, life had to even the scales up a bit, because yeah, it's weighted heavily in favor of a young male in the early part of life. But then it turns, the tables turn when you hit your 40s, 50s. And a man, as you get older, you want to put yourself in a position of security. So earlier in life, the woman does it. She needs security. As you get older, man, you need security and dependability. Yeah. Everything you've aggregated over all of your life, you need to be thinking about security. You need to be securing your affection, as in having a person you can depend on to go off into the sunset together, as opposed to trying to maintain that thing that a younger man can do and that his body is driving him to do. Remember that nature is also supporting you by giving you more access to softening up emotionally to where you can do that better. So, yes. So that's my sharing for the night, y'all. Young ladies, be sure you get an agreement before you allow a young man's body or an older man's body, whatever man's body, into your body, because more than likely you're going to get stuck, hooked, bonded. And it's not until you get, uh, you can say, it's not until that man becomes dethroned psychologically and biologically that you'll be able to let him go. Okay? Meaning, not unless you get a man who's a better man than him will you be able to let that man go, if you get chemically bonded. Or else you have to just surrender to the gope well, which will take about 2 years for your body to flush that kind of addiction out. But that 2 years, you would have to limit your physical connection to that person, even smelling them, seeing them. Yeah, limit their access to you, kind of like you would be weaning yourself off a drug. Okay. And for older men, fellas, all you work hard in all your life, if you know you made a wrong choice with the wife of your youth, look, be very cautious about how you navigate that, because um, trying to live like a young man when you're in your past your 40s, you now could be hurt. You now could be hurt. Men at that age actually also become vulnerable to being brokenhearted. Okay? Again, think of how it is for younger women, brokenhearted. So somebody could come in and you get chemically bonded to them, and they're like, "You're too old for me. I just wanted the money. I just wanted a little good time. Yeah, you bought me a ticket to go here, to go there, but that's not, I don't want to be with you long term, you know? So take care of yourselves out there. Okay? Because a well, broken heart syndrome is no joke. Okay? That's the greatest Dominican word out there. Coming. All right, y'all. I will see you all next Friday. Oh, by the way, I have three winners. Last week, three winners. Winsty, Peto, and Petra. Winsty, Peto, and Petra are the winners of Do It Now, a 7-step plan to fix bad habits that block your success. The book is available on Amazon. Get a copy and learn 7 steps to go from A to Z to clear up all the gunk, all the mess that you might have learned, all the negative programming where people tell you cannot do it, you're not good enough, you don't know what you're doing, you're not worthy, you're not lovable. Clean that out. Yeah, with real strategies, with real psychological strategies. So you can keep building on that and create the life you want. All right. Nous allons parler en l'autre fois. Demain, Dr. Trippin showing up maybe on Friday to talk about uh, the airport and a situation I heard a little young partner talking about there. I want to see what fish we catch between tonight and tomorrow. Okay? And let's have a little bit of a community meeting, because clearly lots of people have strong thoughts on the international airport, one way or the other. Let's talk. All right. Peace. Thank you, Carlson. Have a good night. Au revoir.